Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with my terrific co-host, PK, Patricia Kirkman, and George Lugo. Hey, guys, how are you tonight?
Great.
Fabulous.
Good.
Very, very good.
We have an exciting show tonight where, guess what, everybody? I'm the guest. And George and PK are going to interview me about an amazing UFO alien abduction that took place right here in Massachusetts. So it's been a long time since I've talked about this case publicly, and it happened to someone I became very close friends with. I have the utmost respect for her. Unfortunately, she passed away last fall. But you're going to hear all the details of this incredible case tonight. So stay tuned for that. But before we get into that, Miss PK, you've been looking at numbers, and what did you find?
Well, taking a look at the numbers for this lady, she's quite unique in her own right. She came into this lifetime with an 18-9 destiny, which meant that she was here to do something for the world at large, or things that would enhance people around her. Didn't necessarily mean it was going to be her, but because 9 means what we do for others. And taking a look at her birth name, the first name, Marianne, looking at that, she always did multiple things. She never did just one thing in this lifetime. She always did more than one. She kept trying to push other things into it because this young lady was a very good manipulator, okay? Mm-hmm. No holds barred. We're just calling it like we see it. I'm sorry, she's not here to disagree with me or agree with me on either side of this, but this is what we've got from her. She had issues, very bullheaded, very headstrong woman. Also, I would see here that there's issues with the mother figure and or females, period. There was a jealousy thing that went with her because she didn't know how to deal with women, period. So she did it rather aggressively. Mm-hmm. When she communicated, it would be very direct, almost harsh, not soft, but not cold. You know what? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yes, it does. You're hitting the nail on the head here.
Since you knew her, that would be good to validate from what I'm getting from her. She wasn't afraid of work. She liked change, but she wasn't overly enthused about change. She worked with it relatively well. And her idea what family or what a relationship was supposed to be was guarded by how she felt about it, not how anybody else felt about it. Now, she didn't trust a lot of things in this lifetime. She came into this world to learn how to reach into the spiritual side. So she came, shall we say, because of the name she had, that vessel of the spiritual came in empty, that she had to work it through and build it up herself through other circumstances of this lifetime. Very concerned about finances and or money, but not necessarily caring about how it came about or how she brought it into her. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And she was concerned about others, but just minutely. It was more about her. And
yes.
Very, very headstrong about how she saw things and how she wanted things to be. And I took a look at the point in time when she passed, and I found it rather surprising because in looking at it, she passed in a year, had just passed over, that she was going into her 7th year. And when this actually took place, because of the way the things set up within her chart, it would have been her 9 months, her 9, the 7 and the 9 would have been a combination. So she was finished. She was more than finished and ready to pass on and or to leave. Either that or learn how to teach people to do it differently or better.
Mm-hmm.
There was a gap there. Her idea of wanting things perfect or being a perfectionist about things only concerned her if it involved her. I don't see any warm fuzzies around this woman. Now, am I correct with that, Patricia?
Yes, you are. You're absolutely right. Yes. Yes.
And when she was ready to pass, she was truly ready. She had come full term, if that makes any sense. Had she had a fall or something shortly before she passed?
You know, I don't know. I do know that she had an amputation years before that came on the heels of problems with circulation in her leg. So I know that was a very unhappy time for her.
Okay, because I'm picking up being very unsteady and the possibility, of a fall of some sort or a tripping and falling, which would have messed up her alignment and made her feel very uncomfortable at that point in time.
Mm-hmm. Quite possible.
So, and taking a look at how she perceived things, like I said, she had an idea of things that would be different or better for others, but it always had to be her first.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why I'm pulling that up so much as the fact that she was like a Jekyll and Hyde. She was two different people, depending on who she was talking with or how she was putting things together. But she had a gift that would come from the situation of which she went through, which we will be talking about later this evening, or you're going to be talking about. But that being the ultimate goal for her, because of the combination of the chart and the way things are laid out, it would have been very difficult for her to really want to give to others because it had to be her first. She always did things in twos, wanting things to be different or better or to have a relationship, but only if she could control the relationship. If it didn't go that way, she wanted to get rid of the relationship. So her issue started with her mother, and it moved forward from that throughout her life in how she would perceive her relationships with other women, not always in the best ways, and or even her marriages, because everything was done in twos. That was also at that point in time. So that's what I get about the young lady.
Well, I think that you really hit on a lot of the personality issues. And, certainly we know with people who have tremendous gifts like Marianne had, it far superseded anything I've ever seen with any, far beyond psychics, far beyond any mediumship, far beyond anything I've ever seen. But we still come into this life with lessons to learn. And we come in imperfect. We've all got these challenges that we need to either face or work through, learn something about, so that we can carry these gifts with grace. And sometimes those challenges are just insurmountable. And I know she did, as we all do, the best that we can.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
some of these things outweighed.
Yeah. It started out with from birth her issues with the mother figure and or being in a relationship, being ultra sensitive. So however things were going to go, it kept pulling her back into that area of her not feeling good enough, so she had to take away from somebody else. So it would be like it energized her by pulling back from others. Does that make sense?
It does. It most definitely does.
How did you meet her? How did you meet Marianne?
I met Marianne through Betty Andreasen Luca, who is, as you know, a dear, dear friend, and also a Massachusetts abductee. And Betty introduced me to Marianne and said that Marianne wanted somebody to write her story, turn it into a book. And I was interested. And it was interesting, too, because I did a tarot reading that day, and I knew I was headed into deep water. And at the same time, it didn't dissuade me. I thought this is going to be quite an adventure. And it was. It was a real roller coaster ride, and I will be telling you all about it. It is, it was incredible. And if you asked me to do it all over again, I would. I definitely would. As difficult and challenging as it was also very rewarding because it took me down a rabbit hole where I could get a first-hand look at a human being who superseded what anybody else had been able to do. So, again, she was far beyond anything I had ever seen in the paranormal world. And
she hated
no disputing
boredom.
She had this. Pardon me?
I said she absolutely hated boredom. She was always in another spin on what's going on next. She was always reaching out for it even before she knew where she was going with it. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And she loved the excitement of the people she met. I mean, she met some of the, world-renowned people in the paranormal field. She met Uri Geller. Andrei Puharich was fascinated with her. She knew these people personally, and they were very, very interested in what she could do. So, yes, that fueled her fire to want to do more and continue on with her gifts.
Yeah. Did you find that some of this rubbed off on you? Do you feel like some of that happened for you?
Somewhat.
Did it open your eyes?
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, did it ever. It did. It really did, to what is truly possible for human beings. We are so, we see ourselves as so limited. But meeting someone like Marianne Shenefield really showed me we're not limited. Things can happen that can totally transform who we are, our view of the world. She really had quite the initiation into an inner world of symbols and formulas, and I mean, it was amazing what she had access to. Did she know what it meant at first? No, she didn't. She was a farm girl.
Yeah.
So all of this started, and I'll just go right from the beginning, in 1952 in Agawam, Massachusetts. Okay. She lived on a farm with her parents, Italian heritage, 100%. She had an older brother named Tommy, and he was the favorite, as in most Italian families. That's how it is. And again, this is so many years ago.
I was part of what I understand.
Yeah, firsthand. This is how it is. Now, Marianne was a tomboy. She loved animals, absolutely loved animals, had a great rapport with animals. And she loved being outside, and she liked Little Lulu comic books. So she was very much a farm girl, very, very normal for 1952, and knew nothing at all about UFOs, aliens. I mean, that wasn't even really talked about in 52.
Oh, heavens, no. We didn't know what it was.
Nobody
Buck
was
Rogers,
talking about it, really.
Something that was in a movie that was a serial to the movies that everybody was in awe of, that could even think of such a thing. Now it's an everyday common occurrence.
Right. And so this little girl knew nothing about that. And one day, her father took her brother Tommy out to build a tree fort. She wanted to go, and they said no. She was furious because she felt left out. And she wanted to be one of the guys. She wanted her father to pay attention to her like he did to Tommy, and that wasn't going to happen that day. So it wasn't that her father didn't love her. He did, and her mother too, both of them very loving to both of their kids. But, kids pick up on certain things, and it upsets them. So this day, she was really angry. And her mother told her to stay within a certain area of the farm and not to wear a certain pair of shoes. And, of course, she didn't listen. She wore her red Oxford shoes and went out to the far side of the property. So that was her. She was mad, and she was going to do what she was going to do. So she took some boards and a hammer and some nails, and she was like, okay, forget them. I'm going to build my own tree fort. All right, so that set the scene for what happened next. She goes as far
Wow.
out on the property as she can. She's by herself. It's a clear, sunny day. And she puts her equipment down. She starts banging away with these boards. And she notices this silver object in the sky, and she thinks that that's an airplane. But it makes no sound. So she watches it for a second or two. She goes back to building what she thinks is going to be her tree fort. And a little while later, she hears branches crackling behind her. And she feels somebody's watching her. She turns around. And she comes face to face with what she described as a little boy from China in a scuba diving suit. That was how
that would
she
be interesting
described
at
him.
that point in time, wouldn't it?
Yes, it fit perfectly. I mean, again, this is a very naive, this is not a sophisticated child. This is
Right.
a farm girl. She knew nothing about any of these other things. So she comes face to face with this little boy from China. She thinks he's from China because he has large slanted eyes. He has different color skin. It's grayish, but she's attributing this to being from another country. So he has a large belt around his waist with colors, and he starts pressing that belt, and the next thing she knows, she is being taken aboard, and get this one, what she calls the car from heaven. Again.
Wow.
Yeah,
That
listen
is so
to those descriptions. That's critical
Right.
in the story, so that everybody who's listening tonight can understand that, yes, in fact, this was somebody who is identifying this experience based on her own experience. This had to be a car from heaven, right? What else could it be?
Right. Right.
Who would have thought at that point in time of anything like UFOs? There wasn't any that we knew of.
That's right. So they take her in their ship, and they try to calm her down because, of course, she's very nervous and scared. And they put her in front of this machine, which, again, here we are in 1952. This was like a current-day MRI machine because she was able to see, projected onto the screen of this machine, all of her organs, her circulation, everything in living color moving. Now, that's an MRI.
Jeez. Yeah.
But this is in 1952. Well,
Right.
the whole experience made her sick to her stomach, and she threw up on the alien next to her. So
That's a good way of getting even.
yeah. So they
Oh,
gave
man.
her oxygen, thinking that it was a lack of oxygen in the ship that was causing some of the problem here. But by that time, she was getting terrified. And she started yelling and screaming at them, my daddy's going to come and get you, my brother's going to come and get you, you have to bring me home. And, she was really getting hysterical. And who wouldn't? Because you're with strangers, you're above the earth, and they're communicating with you, but they were communicating with her telepathically. So all of this was beyond strange to her. She didn't know what to make of it. And, of course, she felt very vulnerable and very frightened.
Well, if you think at that point in time she would never have been in a plane or anything, so this experience of being taken into the, quote, sky car would have been something absolutely incredible for her to deal with.
It absolutely was. It was just so outside the norm that I can't even put it in words. This was beyond anything she could have ever even imagined at that point.
That's absolutely amazing. Wow.
Yes.
Poor kid.
And
She must
she
have been terrified.
Yes, she was only 11. Keep that in mind, too. An 11-year-old back in 1952 is very different than an 11-year-old today.
You said it. Yeah.
So eventually they bring her back, and they let her out, and she runs like the wind to an old walnut tree where her favorite cat had been buried. And she just lies down and falls asleep and then wakes up and then runs back to the house. Now, of course, her parents are out of their minds by then because they don't know where she is. They know they told her where she should be so they could keep their eye on her, but she wasn't there. And then she was just gone. So they were also scared to death. Well, she runs into the house. She goes into her bedroom, slams the door, pulls all the shades down, and turns her radio on. They don't know what's going on. The parents come in, they're like, what happened? Are you okay? You know, and she just is talking about the car from heaven, the boy from China. They don't know what the heck's going on.
That's got to be frightening for them at that point in time, because we don't see things like we do on TV every day today. At that point in time, they didn't even have that to work with.
No. So they were confused. They thought, oh, my God, you know, did somebody kidnap her and molest her? You know, that was their thinking on this. And then she started having a rash, which may have been from radiation. I don't know, but something that she was exposed to on the ship. They ended up taking her to the doctor, and the doctor said, no, she's definitely not molested. That didn't happen. Don't worry about that. But they still didn't know what happened. And she had some memory of it, but, again, limited language to be able to describe what happened.
Now, how would you describe at that point in time when the things that we know today as commonplace weren't even thought of then?
No, not at all. No, nobody was talking about any of this back then. This was unheard of. And especially in a rural area, as Agawam was back then. Agawam was all farms. Quite built up now, it's very different, but back then it was farms.
Right. Makes a big difference.
Yes. So after this occurred, it was about within 6 months, she was playing the piano. She took piano lessons, and her father asked her to play the Polonaise, which was his favorite. And she said, I can't. And he's like, why not? Here's the music right here. Here's the sheet music. Put the sheet music up in front of her. She said, I can't see it. So apparently her eyesight
had to be a shock for him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, her father was so upset, and because apparently her eyesight was diminishing, but she never said anything about it. And, you know, with kids, too, if it's a subtle change, they're not likely to notice it until it gets major, right?
They wouldn't even think about it. If things fade or look different and it's gradual, it would seem normal.
That's right. So at this point, she can't see the sheet music that's like a foot in front of her, and her father knows there's something seriously wrong. He takes her to the eye doctor that's local, and the eye doctor thinks, well, maybe it's just a problem with weak muscles. He gives her eye exercises to do, but it does not help. So they're close enough to Boston. He takes her to the best hospital and has someone else examine her eyes, only to find out that she does have macular degeneration. Now, what that does is that mostly happens in older people.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, it destroys your central vision. So, anyhow, that's what they discovered she had. Now, it can also be inherited genetically, which that's my personal opinion. I mean, it's just my opinion that this macular degeneration came on because it can happen, and the research that I did, it can happen to children around this age, around the age of 12 and 13. Of course, it is devastating. And you think about when you're a young teenager, you know, you're looking forward to the first time that you're going to get your learner's permit to drive, and you're going to be going out with your friends and parties and proms and all these kinds of things. And when you lose your vision, you know, all of that changes.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
Yeah, it's really a horrible thing. Now, her father took her to all kinds of specialists to see if anything could be done to reverse this. And at that time, there was absolutely nothing that could be done. Now, this disease did progress to Stargardt's disease, which is, again, another genetic issue, and it also starts to destroy your peripheral vision.
Now, was there anything like that in the family, Patricia, where that would have been
what I found out is this. There was nothing within, like, grandparents to parents. However, this is the kind of genetic anomaly that can be back 4 or 5 generations, and then all of a sudden...
far back. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know my husband
creeps up again.
Yeah.
You know, one kid can get hit with 2 recessive genes and have it.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. So everything was accelerating in her life. It just seems like anything that could happen was happening to her. You know? And boy, how frustrating for her.
Definitely, because she,
at that age.
Yeah, I mean, she was really, a ball of fire, and she just loved her animals, and she loved riding her bike, and she used to pick up praying mantises off the ground and put them on her bike handles. And ride around with these praying mantises, attached to her. I mean, she was just so funny that way, and she just, again, her love of animals. I really, had a lot of respect for her because I'm the same way. I just love animals, and she was that way.
Takes one to know one, right?
That's right. So as this vision deterioration progressed, obviously things were becoming more and more challenging for her. And it was difficult because she didn't fit in anymore. She wasn't, again, that happens a lot with people that have these types of vision disabilities. Their whole world comes crashing down. So, unfortunately,
type of disability puts you at a distance from your peers.
Yes,
creates
exactly.
Problems.
And it's hard because, when you're a teenager, what do you want to do most? You want to fit in.
That's right.
So, that wasn't happening. And so, again, this was a painful time for her. My heart goes out to her and anybody who has to face this and at any time in life, but especially in those teenage years. It's a tough one. So
definitely.
She never really revisited at that time the first experience in 1952. So that was kind of just in the background. It happened. Nobody understood it. She didn't even know what it was, and so on she went with her life.
You spoke about there was a man that was aboard the ship that was dead that she noticed, that he was dead. He was from a different time or something like this?
This was the second abduction. There were two.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so the first abduction happened in 1952. Now, and then all of this happened with her vision. She went on to continue to work for her parents. They owned a farm. They had a greenhouse. She did a lot of work in the greenhouse with the plants. And so she worked. She contributed. And so her parents basically ended up helping her to get her first home, which was down the street from theirs. So she was living fairly independently, and obviously her parents were there to support her as she needed help. But one night, one afternoon, she was getting ready to go out and meet some friends. And she heard a beeping sound. She didn't know where it was coming from. And she goes outside to look. Now, her house that her parents helped her get, that was bordering 800 acres of land called the Meadows. The Meadows consisted of field and forest. It was a large, large piece of land that was not developed. So that was right behind her house. So she goes outside to try to find the source of this noise, and of course she has, at this point, very limited peripheral vision. She can't see anything. All of a sudden, something takes her hand, and she feels like she's floating.
God.
And that's the second abduction, which took place. This is 20 years after the first one.
Jeez. And
she's taken aboard another ship. And now, here's your question, George, about the man that she saw. She did see a man who was dead, and it frightened her. She asked the aliens that were there, why was this man there, what happened to him, and they replied that he had died during a war, and that's all they said about him. They had long conversations with her at that time, but she just didn't remember much of it. But what's so interesting is in both abductions, she was not experimented on. You know how a lot of people talk about that?
Yeah,
sure.
Lying on the table and, the probe goes into their eye or whatever. That didn't happen. So they actually talked to her and were telling her what they were doing. So it was a very different abduction experience than most abductions.
Totally different than Betty's then.
Very different, yes. Very different than Betty's and very different than most people. So there's this way that they had of almost talking to her like she was an equal. It was very unusual.
I wonder.
And there were no implants or anything done to her?
No.
Nothing. Wow,
Nope.
that's pretty amazing. Somehow they could relate to her.
Yes. Yes.
So.
Makes you wonder if there's not more, if there wasn't a little bit more that went on prior to her birth that may have transpired that the family wasn't really paying attention to at the time.
It's quite possible, again, without understanding reference points for these kinds of things. I think she did have a healing ability even before this first abduction. I mean, she did have a rooster that she loved and trained him to come when called, and he also had something wrong with one of his legs, and her grandmother wanted the rooster turned into rooster soup. And, you know, typical grandmother, Italian grandmother, you know, if it doesn't serve a purpose, it's going to be on the table, you know.
That's right. Eat it.
And so she hid him. She hid the rooster. And she would go sneak out and heal, you know, put her hands on the rooster's leg until it healed.
Wow.
So she did have abilities even before any of this happened. So she was returned again to her home, and she woke up to the phone ringing. It was many hours later, you know, into the night, and her friends were like, "Where are you?" But by now it was very late at night, and she wasn't feeling well, you know, from this whole experience. She remembered some of it, but it was kind of hazy. So that was her second abduction. And again, she still had the issue with her vision and not being able to see clearly, so she doesn't know who took her hand. She just knows it was some type of an ET. What she described to me when she talked about it was that these ETs looked more human. They did not look like the first ones, the Greys.
How did the first ones look? Oh, the
They
gray?
looked like Greys. They had the slanted eyes. They had grayish skin.
Oh, that's right.
They had suits on.
Did the second encounter give her an ability to see them, even though her vision was not good, because she could distinguish that they weren't the same?
She could distinguish because she still had, at that point, she still had her peripheral vision. She could see from the side, so she could see. And what she told me was they were more human looking. And but seeing that dead man there, it scared her because she's thinking, what are they doing? You know, there's people and they're cutting them up. What are they doing? So,
yeah, that's scary in its own right.
Yeah, but again, you know, they talked to her. They had conversations with her, and again, I'm sure it was a telepathic experience, but they treated her quite differently. So she goes back to her home, and again, it's late at night. Her friends are wondering where the heck she was and what was going on. And from there, and this is, I think, the most interesting thing that happened after that second abduction. It was several months after, at least. And she was riding in a car with a friend of hers, and she felt and saw a dark blue spiral come from behind and go right into her head. And then it came in the other side, also from behind. And after those spirals hit her, all of a sudden she could see. And she's screaming at her friend, "Stop the car. I can see there's blue shutters on that house." And he's like, "Oh, my God, how can you see that? You know, that's 200 yards away." And she's like, I don't know, but I can see it. So she was ecstatic.
Oh, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
Because for whatever reason, all of a sudden, she was able to see. And it was a thrilling moment. Then it dissipated.
Imagine.
But she called her eye doctor, explained what happened, and the doctor's like, "Look, I'm telling you right now, there is no way that you're ever going to be able to see again. I don't know why this happened. I don't know what it is, but your eyes will never return to normal." So, of course, she was very disappointed and sad to hear that. But that experience was profound because it led to the next thing. And the next thing that happened was she went to bed, and all of a sudden she sees a large golden lion, like floating in front of her. And here's the difficult part. She closes her eyes. It's still there. And screaming at it, go away, what are you, go away. You know, she thinks something terrible is happening to her. Again, she had no reference points for any of this. She never even heard the word psychic. She didn't know what that meant.
Right.
So she's seeing this thing floating in front of her. And as time goes on, it continues to multiply. Now, she's not just seeing this. Now she's seeing symbols. Now she's seeing colors. Now she's seeing formulas. And there is no more darkness. So when she closes her eyes, she doesn't see darkness anymore. She sees all of this, all of these light symbols, all of these colors. That's hence the name, Colors in the Dark, because can you imagine if you were not able to see darkness anymore? When you closed your eyes, you kept seeing as if your eyes were open. And you're seeing things that you don't even know what in the world they are.
Sleep
and they're all
would be
moving.
possible with something like that taking place.
I'm sorry, PK, I didn't hear you.
I said sleep would be almost impossible with that taking place.
Absolutely.
It would be hard to shut down the mind.
Yeah, there was no way to shut it down. It was just on all the time. And she didn't even know what she was looking at. So she went to the doctor. The doctor's like, oh, I'll give you some Valium, calm you down, you'll be able to sleep. The Valium made it worse. So, because it slowed everything down. So all it did was make everything that she was watching move in slow motion.
Oh, dear. You know, that would be even worse.
Yeah.
So she was seeing objects like numbers and patterns and just colors and everything, things like that?
Everything, yes, everything
abstract.
like that. And it all had meaning, but she didn't know what it meant.
Mm.
Again, remember who she was and where she came from.
Right.
What was the feeling of the blue lion? What was that
The lion
all about?
was gold, but the spirals were blue. And the
Okay,
spirals were kinetic energy. I mean, that was kinetic energy that came from somewhere. And but the lion was gold, and that's also an alchemical symbol for transformation, as well as part of the ancient Egyptian initiation.
You know, when I was reading about it, I kept getting the blue with the lion, and then as soon as you said it was gold, then all of a sudden it was like the blue popped up around it, which made it stand out even more so.
It did, because there was a blue field, you're right about that, around the lion. You see, that dark blue energy, she was so telekinetic, and we're going to get into that too, some of the things that she was able to do, which were quite incredible, way beyond some of the things that Yuri did, even though Yuri himself was amazing. Marianne was also amazing in what she could do with her mind and how she could move matter. So as this continued, she thinks she's losing her mind. She checked herself into a mental
I could understand that.
Yeah, and they said, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not mentally ill. Leave. So that was the end of that. Then she thought, well, maybe I'm possessed. So she called a priest to do an exorcism. And he came and he blessed her, and he blessed all the rooms in the house, and didn't make any difference. So she's still stuck with this. She tried smoking pot. Somebody gave her some marijuana. She said, I'll try anything to stop this. And she said it made it worse again, and that really slowed everything down to the point where when she was walking, she'd be walking into the symbols. So
it had to be frightening.
It was very frightening. I mean, the first night it happened, she took a big, stiff drink and passed out. And that was the only time that she was able to get away from it. But it just kept coming. And once again, she did not know much about any of the stuff that we know about, any of the paranormal. Right. She did not know it. So this to her was so unusual and alien, really, no pun intended, that she just didn't know what to do. I mean, her life was spiraling out of control. And at the same time...
These codes and things that she was receiving, she wasn't able to decipher what they meant?
Eventually, she was able to figure out what they meant. And, for example, and as time progressed, more information came to light. And the thing that was so fascinating to me about her is that she could look at you, George, for example, and she could tell you your lineage. She could tell you what health problems you had. She could tell you your strengths, your challenges, everything. Just by looking at you. Yeah, just by looking at you.
Both of us.
And she'd be 100% right.
Amazing.
So that was one of her amazing talents. The other thing that happened that I think is critical for everybody to understand about her is that her parents brought her to a psychiatrist. And this was after they had heard a couple of radio programs where they did hear somebody talking about the paranormal, about psychic, she finally started to learn something about that. She also heard a show on the radio about UFOs. She contacted the person, met with them, and then she went to see a local psychiatrist, Dr. John Donahue. Dr. Donahue gave her sodium amytal to bring her memories back. Now, she is the only, as far as I know, the only UFO abductee that was given truth serum. Now, what happens with truth serum, which you may not realize, is that it's difficult to direct somebody to answer questions because everything comes out. Everything. Doesn't matter what it is. It may not be pertinent to what you want to know, but it's just there's no filter. So it all comes flying out. And out came her first abduction and her second abduction. So I don't know anybody who had truth serum, but there you go. There's proof that really did happen. Because with hypnosis, there's always naysayers that talk about, you can be influenced, and I think that may be true if the hypnotist is not experienced in what they're doing. But, excuse me, she had truth serum, and the truth serum did take away the filter, and these two abductions came out. So,
did she feel any different after the truth serum as far as what she saw or how she responded to what she saw?
I think it's helped her to put things in perspective, that she wasn't crazy, that this really did happen to her.
That stage.
And that was a big step because, all of this confusion around what is this? It was huge. I mean, what was this?
Right,
what was
gigantic.
The first abduction? Yeah.
Well, how terrifying it would be to be unable to see, and yet you see all these things, and there's no correlation to what you've seen or lived prior to that.
Right. That's right. Again, no reference points for any of it. So by the time that I met Marianne, she had some kind of a handle on what these symbols meant and the ability to interpret them and also to have vision into other people's lives, which was incredible. And there were just so many things that she was able to do. And if she got angry, watch out, because the telekinetic experiences happened. I'll give you an example. She was married to her husband, Danny, and Danny had said to her, you really should quit smoking. And she's like, yeah, I know. And she was a chain smoker.
Oh, my God, I can't believe you said that.
Why?
She says Gabriel doesn't like it. He doesn't like the smoke.
Oh.
She's got your dog.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, she's got your dog. She just wants you to know that.
And he doesn't like smoke.
He doesn't like the smoke.
Not smoking, Marianne. My God, you can't even stop over there.
No, she said you can smoke all you want here. It's great. So there's no penalty.
Be happy. Oh, gosh. Oh, that's so interesting, George.
Yeah, she just popped up right when you said that she was a chain smoker or something. She just said, yeah, Gabriel doesn't like it.
Don't smoke around my dog.
That's right.
Aren't sure.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, anyway, just so I can tell you the rest of the story, maybe she'll pop back in again. What happened was she went out to eat at a restaurant with her husband, and she was just really craving a cigarette. And she said, "Give me my cigarettes," to her husband. He said, "No, you're trying to quit. You're making some progress." And she banged her hand on the table and said, "Give me my cigarettes." And she blew out the transformer that handled that whole neighborhood. Just blew it up.
Wow.
She was definitely the hit of the area. Oy.
Yep.
Yeah.
But talk about, power. I mean, she was somebody who had that kind of power. There was no question in my mind. I know one time I said something to her, she got mad. And her husband was with her and he points up to the ceiling. I look, my chandelier is swinging.
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Luckily
So,
it didn't come off.
She was capable of doing these types of things. Now, could she control it? It was hard for her to control it, but it mainly would be set off by when she got mad. When she get mad, like I said, you had to watch out because these things could happen.
So is her husband still alive?
Her husband's still alive. They did get a divorce fairly recently, actually. I think it was in the last, 5 or 6 years, something like that. They were divorced.
Well, that was her second husband, was it not?
That was what?
That was her second husband, was it not?
Third.
Oh, she was a busy girl.
Yeah.
Well, so were the guys. I'm sure they're going, what the hell is going on here?
Well, I mean, considering her abilities and her lack of vision on a day-to-day basis, I mean, most people are lucky to find one person that they could spend their life with, but 3, that's pretty darn good.
I know, really.
Wow.
Really. So, yes. So the other thing that she could do as she developed more and more along this path is she was able to get on people's frequencies. And what I mean by that is this. I would be in my office seeing a client. All of a sudden, I smell tobacco. I smell smoke. Somebody's smoking, right? I'm like, Jesus, God, I don't allow smoking here. And my client's smelling the smoke. I look outside. There's nobody outside. There's nobody else in the office area or the house area. There's nobody. Where the heck is this coming from? And it's strong. We can both smell it. So I called up Marianne. I'm like, "Are you on my frequency?" She's like, "Yeah, and I can't stop smoking." I'm like, "Would you just get off my frequency?"
Wow.
We're smelling
You're ruining my
smoke.
sessions.
Right. We are smelling your smoke as if you're in the room. She goes, "Oh, I'm really sorry.
Incredible.
Okay, I'll get off your frequency." But that's what she could do. So, and she could get on my frequency, and all of a sudden I'd be like, "What's the peanut butter sandwich? I don't like peanut butter sandwich." She would be craving a peanut butter sandwich, and then I would start craving a peanut butter sandwich. It was that strong with her that she could do that.
That's
Wow.
a little scary when it comes to intimacies as well, then.
Yes.
Yeah.
She was so, again, the power that she had was indisputable. And, of course, the alphabet agencies were interested in her because
of course.
what she could do.
What are the alphabet agencies? What does that mean?
FBI, CIA, NSA.
Oh,
Government.
those guys.
Governmental.
And it's funny. She had, I'll tell you what, though, she had a really healthy attitude about them because she knew they were bugging her phone. And,
Gee, I wonder why.
Easy, yeah, really. And it's easy to get paranoid about that. I mean, way back then, the government was very aggressive going after abductees and gave them a hard time. And so it's easy to get very afraid. And you feel like you're always being watched, you're always being listened to. Well, she had a really good attitude about it. She's like, "They're listening to me, good. Maybe they'll learn something." So that was her attitude. Like, screw them. They want to listen, that's fine. Maybe they'll learn something. And I thought that was a great attitude to have.
Yeah. In some ways it could have helped her, to explain things, to understand stuff. I'm surprised they didn't use it for more experiments or, call her in and do things, have her do stuff.
Well, again, there were some strange things that did occur, and I'll share some of those with you. But let me go back over one thing before we go to break. And when I first met Marianne, she drank a lot. And she drank a lot to get away from this. But it was was out of control. It was out of control. Yeah. And so at one point I had to talk to her about this, and I said, listen, you need to stop this with the drinking, because she would end up calling me like at 1 o'clock in the morning, and she'd be drunk. And I felt for her, believe me, you know, and what she was going through and trying to control this. And she was also, another thing, furious with the aliens because she felt they did this to her. She felt that they blinded her, and she felt that they also brought her sight back this way. So she was angry at them. Now, I didn't walk in her shoes, but at the same time, to me, I was looking at it quite differently. I was like, maybe it's possible, Marianne, that they didn't blind you, that this is a genetic thing that was going to happen. And maybe they gave you the gift of these blue spirals, and to them, they think they're giving you a gift. Because you can, because you can see, you can walk around. I mean, they could take the people from the Blind Institute would come and say, well, we got to help you because you're disabled and this and that. And they'd take her to this auditorium, and they wanted to teach her how to use a cane. And her husband's just laughing. He's like, yeah, let's watch this happen. And they took a penny, and they threw it the length of the auditorium, and she just walked over and picked it up. So she could see. I mean, there was a way that she would determine what she was seeing in physical reality and what she was seeing in the other reality.
You know, maybe they put things in her energetically. You know, they put things in her energetically, but for being human. I don't know. You know, all she knew about was the spirals. It's like putting a Japanese part in a Ford engine. You know, it doesn't quite, it works, but it doesn't quite work as well or differently. You know, so I don't know. There was something like that she was dealing with. But either way, man, her things were profound. I mean, that's just absolutely amazing. And also torture for her. You know, it must have tortured her so much. You know? It did. And you guys were pretty close, right, to the end?
We were very close for many years, yes. And it did, you know, this again, is this experience is so outside what most people can even wrap their minds around.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And after the break, I'll start with another experience that happened when she was able to diagnose illnesses also.
Okay.
So we'll start with that. But we're going to take a short commercial break, everybody. Stay tuned. You are listening to Supernatural Girls Radio. We'll be right back.
Pure essential oils, specialized minerals, and a revolutionary anti-aging technology. Astridian combines the best of all scientifically proven ingredients in easy-to-use creams, lotions, and concentrated serums. Astridian's advanced line of products take your skin to a new level of being healthy and beautiful. We offer a variety of collections that address all your skin concerns. The Essential Anti-Aging Series treats and moisturizes your skin for a long-lasting, younger look. The Multivitamin Series promotes healthy skin with high-quality vitamins and minerals. The Sports Series restores skin from cellular damage and stress. Astridian also offers a revitalizing solution for hair and a professional series for doctors and medical spas. Visit astridian.love today and begin your new journey to healthy, beautiful, youthful skin. Astridian, beyond your expectations.
There are a lot of psychics out there. How do you decide which one is right for you? You look for someone who empowers you, who's practical and spiritually connected, who says, here are your opportunities, here are your challenges, and here's a way to deal with them, and then gives you your own toolbox to make your life everything you want it to be. Hi, I'm Corby Mitlide, and that's how I work with you. As a certified professional tarot reader, I've helped thousands of people for over 40 years through my toolbox. Cards, past life retrieval, numerology, spirit guide conferences, and mediumship. Whether it's career, relationships, finances, or your spiritual road, together we can replace your confusion with clarity. And you'll probably find a little laughter along the way. Visit me at CorbyMitline.com to find out how to cross your bridge from fear to fearlessness and fly. And tell me you found me at Supernatural Girls for a special gift with your reading. Corby Mitline, the practical psychic for catching your tomorrows today. Find me at CorbyMitline.com. That's CorbyMitline.com.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. Also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Available on Amazon.com.
Are you frustrated with endless mantras, affirmations, and processes that promise to align your life with your dreams, only to find yourself years later in the same space where you began? Do you feel like you must be doing something wrong because nothing seems to be working? Don't you just wish that someone could shift your consciousness for you and your life could align with your desires without all the effort? Well, your wish is about to come true. Hi, I'm Carrie Cannon, and I have a gift that allows me to align the consciousness of others to be in harmony with their dreams. The best part is, it requires no particular effort on your part. Upon listening to a consciousness alignment, people have reported instant energy shifts, financial windfalls, soulmate connections, healed relationships, physical healings, and more. To gain access to a free trial offer for my entire Manifesting Miracles library of consciousness alignments, go to commandmiracles.com now for details. Again, that's commandmiracles.com for information about our free trial offer. That's commandmiracles.com.
Welcome back, everyone, to Supernatural Girls Radio. I'm your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm actually the guest tonight, and I'm being interviewed by my terrific co-hosts, Patricia Kirkman, PK, and George Lugo. You can find Patricia Kirkman at patriciakirkman.com and also at supernaturalgirls.com to schedule your own personal numerology reading. And you can reach George Lugo for psychic mediumship. He's the best in the world. And you can find him at crystalgatereadings.com. That's crystalgatereadings.com. So we are talking tonight about a friend of mine, and her name is Marianne Shenefield. And we're talking about her UFO experiences, how she went blind from macular degeneration and then regained her sight through some unknown paranormal experience and became an extremely powerful person in the world of the paranormal and in the world of life. So what I wanted to share with you next is her ability to diagnose illnesses. I had a client in my office who was in tremendous pain, and I was very worried about her. So I called Marianne. I said, I don't know what to do. Can you tell me what's going on with this person? And she said, oh, yeah. She said she has endometriosis and a tremendous amount of scar tissue, and that's what's causing her pain. So it's not life-threatening. Don't worry about it. Well, it was within, I think, 2 months that lady went and had surgery for endometriosis, and the doctor said he had never seen so much scar tissue, ever, and that was the cause of her pain.
Incredible.
So
pretty popular
was,
girl, boy.
Yeah, I mean, she could do that with anybody. She told me she said, well, you have hypothyroid. I said, no, I don't. I test completely normal. She said, I'm telling you, you're hypothyroid. She was right. I was. So she had this, again, amazing ability to just look at somebody and be able to tell them, this is your physical problem, this is where it's coming from, and you should go talk to your doctor about it. She was never wrong.
Now, when she looked at people, because of it, only the color and the light, what did she see when she was looking at you? Did she see you as I would see you if I was sitting with you? Or
she would see me as energy. She could see me either way. She would see me as energy, or as like I would look like a negative. Okay, like how a picture, the old-fashioned pictures, and with negatives. That's how I would look to her. But in energy, she would just see all the energy. So she would be able to again do the same thing of being able to tell my lineage, being able to see what my health problems were, anything. She could just glance at me and see all of it.
It was like looking at a total negative that was shining through.
Yes, that's what it would look like.
Negative. Look and see everything.
Yep. Yes.
She probably got used to the. She probably got used to the colors. How things would show up if something was wrong or bad, or it probably had a certain color to it, and she would kind of zero in on it.
And the vibration also. She would see
and
a wave.
The vibration of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
She could determine all of that. She's very, very expert at those things, and she was able. I know in later years she also did a lot of research for people as scientists that wanted to know what was going on with something, and she would be able to tell them what was going on with planets, with in our solar system, outside of our solar system. I mean, she could just look and tell you. And again, she was never wrong. I never ever found her she was wrong about anything that she saw in energy.
Well, she's waiting for you to do something about it, because right now she's just barely a footnote, out there. Not too many people have heard of her, I don't think. So
I would love you to write her
you're
story.
You're going to carry the. Yeah, why don't you?
I'm going to.
And
you can.
Yeah, you
Marianne,
should.
I'm going to do this. I'm talking to George now, and I'm talking to you. I will do it. So
she's holding your dog up to you.
Oh.
Yeah, it's fine. He seems like a puppy.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he seems like a puppy.
Baby.
Full of. Yep, he's there. He's there.
I miss him.
He says he's been on that bed already.
His partner misses him as well. How's the other pup doing, honey?
Hermes misses him terribly. It's very hard for Hermes.
Hermes sees him. Hermes
yes,
says
I noticed. Yes, you're right. Yes, he started to see him. Yeah.
Wow, it's amazing. That's great.
Yeah.
But
it's been tough. I mean, I have to be honest. It's the worst loss. And Hermes was crying himself to sleep until a couple nights ago.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really hard. Losing Gabriel was a big loss for me.
Yeah, huge
and for
loss.
Hermes, too. Very hard.
Never been alone, or has he?
Pardon me?
I said Hermes was never alone before.
He was never alone before, and what's so interesting is he was also the dominant one. So he always acted like the tough guy, and Gabriel was just kind of laid back, like, okay, Hermes, whatever you want. But without Gabriel here, what we're seeing is a dog that has lost his confidence, that isn't sure of himself. I mean, it's like Gabriel gave him the balance and the stability to be the tough guy, and now that Gabriel's not here, it's very difficult for him, and it's heartbreaking for me, because I'm like, not only am I feeling the loss myself, but I look at Hermes and see his loss, and oh my God.
Oh, that's even worse.
It is. It's just so much worse. I just can't even put it in words. There are no words for this kind of deep, profound loss, really.
Right.
It's like
Have you felt him on your bed?
Your child.
Have you felt him on your bed?
I did.
Getting up there? Yep, that's what you're saying.
I felt him sitting on my right foot. I knew it was him.
Yes. Oh my God! I should have just said it. Something about your feet sitting on your foot, or being next to your foot, leaning up against it, or something about being on your bed.
Yes, you're right. You're right.
Wow. He misses you too.
Oh, really? We just were in love with each other. Very, very hard, and I appreciate everybody who sent their warm wishes and hugs and virtual hugs, and people sent flowers and cards, and I just can't even tell you how much that meant, everybody, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
It's a major, major loss for me and for Hermes. So anyways.
Well, Marianne's talking about getting her story out there.
I'd love to
movie
do that
made out of it. A movie, something, a book, a movie. She really she's depending on you.
Well, at the time that I was writing the story was a little bit thin. It was difficult to flesh out. It didn't manifest. She did have other authors give it a try, and it just didn't happen. So I don't know if all of us authors didn't have the right context to put this in at the time or the right way to write about it, but I feel like I do now. So I've already discussed it with a friend of mine in L.A. who has access to some larger production studios. I'd love to see this because I think Marianne's story is a tremendous story to tell because it's not just about her power. It's also about how she struggled with her humanity,
right.
And it was always getting in the way, and it was very difficult sometimes for people to work with her. We all loved her, and I adored her, and I thought the world of her, and she knew that. But as you said, PK, if things didn't go the way she wanted to, then she became difficult.
Yes, well, she had a temper. She had quite a temper.
Yes. Yes.
Well, she's saying it's time. So try it this time. Third's a charm. So she's just saying,
I'm happy to do
try
it.
This time. She said it's timely now.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is. And again, what she showed me and the people who knew her is that these things are quite possible. And that's an amazing future to look at, to think that we can do these amazing things. We can look into a person's energy field and diagnose them accurately. We can move things with our mind. We can, know what's going on in our universe just by paying attention to it.
It's been proven so many times over and over, and yet we're still skeptical of it really being a fact.
Yeah, again, she was living proof that not only was alien abduction real, it really happened to her. And again, with the truth serum part of her story, there's nobody else that I know of that's undergone sodium amytal by a board-certified psychiatrist. Nobody did that back then. So nobody does that now, but they should. They should, if you want to retrieve memories.
Of it. Don't you think so at that time?
Do I think what?
I think that people were afraid of it at that time. It's almost like they were afraid of letting their guard down so that they would be thought of differently or something would respond in a different way.
We all know, and we've heard this from our own guests on the show, that this was a club nobody really wanted to belong to because there was no upside to it. So, but again, this was a part of her life since she was 11 years old. And again, she didn't have a lot of the skills and the resources to know what to do with any of this. It was just totally, totally foreign. And at one point, I was working in my office with a group of sisters, came from a large family, and all of a sudden, I saw like Marianne saw, and I saw these lines of light. Now, when I talk about lines of light and the way she saw, these things were alive, all right? So it's like, watching a live wire almost, but bigger and stronger, and just, it's hard for me to even describe what I saw. But all of a sudden, I saw
they had the commercial, stay away from these wires that are down, that
it's
spark
very
that comes
similar
off.
to that, except
That's
they were
what I'm
consistent.
picking up around you when you talk about it.
Yes, it was very much like that. So you're looking at all this energy, but it's more than looking at it. You're feeling it. And when I saw these lines connect from one sister to another, and I'm watching this, I can tell you this, it was exhausting. It was absolutely, I was exhausted. I had to go lie down after the session. I didn't expect that.
I can imagine so.
Yeah, I did not expect that because you think, you're just watching, you're thinking, she's watching light. And, of course, that's disconcerting when you want to go to sleep. But it was more than watching light. It was watching these live, energetic connections one person to another, one person to, their pet or their partner or their land, or it's endless. So if you think about that, again, how overwhelming something like that would be.
Also terrifying because it's so unexpected, the depth of it.
She did get used to it to a point.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I just saw a photograph.
There were photographs that she had taken of these lights that would show up around her, too. Like there were strings of lights.
Yes,
and
I was just going to say that.
Yes, she had those. And she also knew when there was a UFO over my house. And when I lived in Rocky Hill, Connecticcut,
for a while,
she'd call me and say, there's a UFO over your house. I'm like, where? They would go look outside, and she'd go, there's 3 lights. See that triangle in the sky? I'm like, yeah. She goes, that's a UFO. It's over your house.
How did she and Betty connect when they were talking about their situations? Because their abductions were different, yet
very different. Again, Betty was very spiritual and is very spiritual. And as you mentioned, Marianne really was not. But Betty and Marianne got along quite well. And Betty gets along with everybody, let's face it. She's just a love, and she's a sweetheart. And she and so she got along well with everybody. Now, Marianne also knew Betty Hill from New Hampshire. Remember Betty and Barney Hill? And I got to meet Betty. Betty Hill came to her house, Marianne's house, and we met. I also got to meet Andrea because of Marianne, who was an incredible man. So she was able to open the door for me to meet people that I wouldn't have met any other way, and I'm very grateful to her for that. It was, again, a wonderful adventure, but it was a bit of a roller coaster ride at the same time because of the alcohol, because of the fact that she was trying to juggle so many things. Her own personal issues, as well as, the anger stuff. It wasn't managed well, which a lot of people don't manage that well. And of course, this tremendous gift and tremendous power. And
she was very manipulator, which also created a problem.
The rooms in her mind.
Because of not
knowing
how
to... the rooms in her mind. Oh, okay, go ahead.
I was going to say she was very much a manipulator because those around her didn't always know how to handle her, because one minute it would be uplifting and the next minute it would almost be a domineering force going through.
Yes, exactly that. And so it was difficult to manage. I can remember talking to Betty, Andreas, and Luca about it and saying, this woman's driving me crazy. And Betty felt so bad. She goes, I never should have introduced you. I'm like, don't feel that way. This has been great, and it's a challenge and a half. But it's okay, because underneath all this, and we all loved Marianne. We did. Mm-hmm. And we respected the fact that she had these challenges. But at the same time, we didn't know how to handle some of it. It was a little overwhelming for all of us, too.
Talk about the rooms in her mind, the rooms of her mind.
Yeah, that
Marianne.
was very interesting. She could go into different rooms, and she could open up different rooms that belonged to other people, too. She didn't usually do that, but she was very, again, she had this ability to move in energy and to move energy. She could do both. And it's, again, unfortunately, PK, you're right, that she wasn't all that interested in helping other people, because I did know she had healing ability, but she didn't really like to use it. So
was it good for her?
Yeah, she just didn't, and that always kind of, I just was like, well, why not? If you have the ability to help somebody heal, why not help them heal? But she just wasn't interested in it, so I had to respect that. That's not something she really wanted to pursue. So moving through energy and moving the energy. Talk about rooms of the mind, going from one room to another. She could do that with ease. With ease. And again, remarkable abilities, just remarkable. And, she did her best, God bless her. And I know it was a challenge for her, and it was a challenge for the people that loved her, too.
I can imagine. So that's why the marriages had to be very difficult to deal with for her partner.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure they saw things that they just couldn't understand or even fathom, and she could do it, and they're just wondering, what the heck is this?
Well, I think it was less that than the human side of relationship issues that come up in every relationship. It was more that than anything else. Because
it's hard to be sensitive to other people's feelings when you have a tendency to be insensitive because of your own.
Yes, and I think that was more the issue. And again, she was for many, many years, she was very kind to me. She always invited me, for big Thanksgiving dinners, and it was always like, being a part of the family for a period of time. And I appreciated that very much. I really did. And I, again, respected and appreciated her love of animals. She always had lots of cats, and she was, so wonderful with them. And so there were just so many redeeming qualities, And then there were the difficult moments also.
Well, she did better with the animals because there wasn't any need to do anything other than just care about them.
Yes.
To each other, they shared in a way. She didn't have to explain anything or feel anything other than what she personally felt towards the animal.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and, I can appreciate she still wants her story out there, and I would love to be the one to bring it out there, and that's why I'm so glad you both agreed to interview me tonight to talk about this, because it is an important story. Her life was important. It mattered in a much bigger way than I think most people can even realize. To be able to do what she was able to do, it was astounding. Because, again, let's face it, with most psychics, maybe there's an 80% accuracy rate, something like that, if they're really, really good. I mean, she was 100%. All the time. It went way beyond psychic. Way beyond that. This was not psychic. This was looking at energy and going, here's what it says.
Yeah. Clear
that
vision.
Itself could be rather scary at times, too, to be able to see it in that in-depth.
It could be, but I don't think it stopped
Not
her.
Not necessarily for her, but for other people in the same fashion.
Yeah, for other people, sure. It's like being there with your naked. It's like nothing to hide. You can't hide it. Whatever you're trying to hide, you can't. So
how has she changed
remarkable
your life?
life?
I mean, how has she changed your life? Just by opening up your eyes to so many new things, or?
I think so. I think she showed me that this is possible. It's that you can go beyond psychic. You can go into this, and I always wanted her to teach me more about how she did what she did. She never would. So, she talked about.
She didn't like to share. You know that.
She what?
I said she did not like to share. You know that.
Yes. Well, she didn't, especially when it came to that. But I always wanted to learn more, so I learned by watching her. And there are things that I did learn by watching. And, again, she is somebody that probably could have taught people something about her ability, and they could have learned how to do something of what she did. Maybe not all of it, but, some of it. Because she just knew. She knew what she was doing by the time she had lived with it for so many years. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah, but she wasn't a teacher. She was a doer.
That is true. She was no teacher.
She was a doer. She could do things in a way, but only when it was convenient on her side.
Yes. Yes. And, she did deserve a lot of accolades for what she had accomplished.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Yes.
But we're looking
But again, it was hard to rally, the rest of the world to pay attention to what she was doing for a number of reasons. I think at that time it may not have been the right time, but she was, again, so unique in what she was able to do.
Remember that movie with John Travolta where he went outside of some bar and there was a flash in the sky and he passed out, and then when he woke up he knew everything about everything. Remember that movie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that when he'd wear the raincoat or a top coat?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought it was.
And he could see figures in his mind and all kinds of formulas or formulas said you could read them and know what they meant. And just everything. He just knew everything about everything. It was just kind of an amazing movie as far as that goes. And then eventually he died from it, I think. Didn't he die from it? Yeah, something like that. But anyway,
so.
that's kind of interesting. This woman kind of reminds me a little bit of that, that somebody may have heard something about her.
Didn't she have a child, Patricia?
She has a child. Yes, she has a daughter and a granddaughter. Yes.
Okay. Are they at all in tune with the spiritual side of things, either of them?
I really can't answer for that. It's possible that her granddaughter is. I really don't know. And her daughter also was adopted. So this was not something that would have been passed on genetically.
Passed on through birth. Okay. That's why I wondered if there was any connection there.
Yeah, I don't think so. There may be. I don't know. I know she was close to her granddaughter, definitely.
But Marianne had some disability before the first abduction, right?
I think she had some healing ability, as that's why I shared the story about the rooster.
I see.
think
With
she
everything
did.
Amplified. Yeah, something triggered everything after that abduction. Just sent her into another realm of herself, and that's why it's interesting you asked that question. Did she have any children? Yeah, and it just didn't take because she didn't have the same experience. Maybe not.
No, there's something missing. But the fact that she kept trying to progress her personal side with 3 marriages say that she very much wanted to be out and cared about, but there was something missing.
Yes, and I think you did describe that accurately at the beginning of the show too, PK. And it's I'm very interested, George, too, if you ever do pick up on anything around her relationship with these aliens, because they treated her so very differently. They treated her almost like she was one of them.
Them, exactly. That's what she says, that she was one of them. But in a human form, just...
I did too. With the beginning when we were talking about her reactions and her relationship after the first encounter was so totally different from any other encounters we've talked about or people that have been involved. This was almost like coming home as opposed to being a part of something else. Does that make sense?
Yes, and so that's one of the reasons it disturbed me so much when she kept blaming them for her blindness and also blaming them for the next thing that happened with her inner vision. It just felt wrong to me. And again, who am I to say? I was on the outside looking in. But from where she sat for a very long time, there was a lot of rage at them. But if you do look at her abduction experiences, in my opinion, you're seeing aliens treating her like she's part of the gang.
That's right.
Well, the fact that she was angered on one side, which also makes you wonder how to set up a relationship with others. I mean, 3 marriages for a person that's very angry doesn't usually fall into line, so there's something else that was involved within that spectrum of things that, to us looking in, doesn't quite fit. So there had to be something else gifted to her to make that transpire.
Yes, and again, if she's one of them, then I can see where human experience would be particularly challenging. So, you would see that,
especially
you would understand that.
And then being so young and then abducted and it scared her and the way she related to it and all of that, that was kind of like her coming out party. Like they probably knew that's the time to bring her out,
Makes sense, George.
So, yeah, it does. That does make sense.
Now, Patricia, when are you going to start the book?
I've already started it. And
good girl.
And I've also, like I mentioned, I was talking to a friend of mine in L.A. who wants to help push this forward as some type of a movie, which I think would be great because, again, this is a human story as well as an alien story. It's both. And, again, the possibilities for humans are endless when you look at what happened with her.
Right.
Oh, definitely.
And the way this story flows, it's so timely with what's going on. I mean, her story could be talked about now easier now than it would have been 10 years ago or 15 years ago. I mean, now is the time to, now's the time to really let it out. But someone's going to pick this up, and they're going to pay for it, and she's going to make it either a TV movie or a regular movie. I like to see it go on the big screen, with somebody that plays her part, really in a good way.
Yes.
So she's ready. She's depending on you. She really does.
Well,
she's really saying, like, 3 is a charm. She'll help you. She'll nudge you. You just got to
doing that already. Otherwise, we would be doing this tonight.
Right.
Yes, I agree. I think that she's been behind this show even, and because I've talked about doing this for some time, and you were both kind enough to go along with it and become the interviewers.
Interesting to do this with you. After all, you're our favorite person. You know that.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you. Well, we all make
absolutely.
a good team, and believe me, I know that I knew that you'd ask the right questions to bring all the nuances of this story out, and there is even more to it. We may at some point do another show on it, but it is timely, yes, and it's also hopeful.
Yes,
it shows what can happen in the face of adversity and strangeness, high strangeness, which this certainly was in her life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Very much so. And it'd be interesting to see how she's affected other people's lives, that are still around, what they know of her, you know what I mean, and what they experienced with her. Mm-hmm. That'd be interesting to find out.
Yes.
Was she close to her daughter?
Very.
Because I have a feeling that her daughter's got some pieces to this picture that hasn't been brought up yet. Don't ask me why. Are you in contact with her yet?
I've been in contact with her daughter through the years, not so much in the past number of years. Her daughter is lovely, and her granddaughter's lovely, but I do know her daughter wanted nothing to do with the UFO stuff. Nothing to do with it at all. None of it. So she just wanted, her normal life, which is understandable. So
right.
But
she may be able to give you some information. If she doesn't want to participate, that's her choice, of course. But she may have some additional information that she could pass on to you that may be of value in your putting the story together.
Oh, yes. And there are people that are still alive today. You're right, PK. And there are people still alive today who Linda Moulton Howe knew her. And some of the other researchers in the paranormal field knew her also, and she did work on research projects with them. So there is a community of people that I'd probably talk to again about Miss Marianne and her incredible life. But again, I have the utmost respect for her. I love her. I think she was just a gift in my life and a challenge at the same time, but that's okay.
But isn't that what makes the best of everything? The yin and the yang?
You can
tear your hair out 1 minute and swing on a rope the next and sit back and laugh the following.
That's right. That's right. Well, and it's true. We all do the best we can, and she had some really insurmountable challenges that I think people coming into this life, into physical reality, tend to be very optimistic before they get here. But once they're here, those challenges are very real, and it's tough sometimes. It's tougher than what anybody thought, and that's the way I think about it. I think sometimes these challenges are just a little too much. So anyway, look,
they say
you guys have been great. Thank you so much for doing this show tonight. I appreciate it.
It was fun. It was great doing it with you. Definitely.
It was wonderful to let you talk about this. This is great. I learned a lot about her. I could feel it. I could just feel her. Oh, she's got Gabriel waving his little paw at you.
See what?
No. She's got Gabriel waving his little paw at you.
Oh God.
So his little tongue.
Marianne, you better take good care of my baby.
She will.
She will, for sure.
She'll have
Stop
him smoking
around
no time.
him.
That's right.
We're going to steal your cigarettes, Marianne.
Yeah. Oh, well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much, and thank you, everybody, for listening tonight. And we have another great show coming up next week, so be sure to tune in then. And till then, we'll see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Gabriel says good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural.